Hey, Flyer fans, really excited to focus our attention on Dayton Volleyball as we are sitting down with the reigning Player of the Year in the Atlantic 10, Lexie Almodovar. Lexie, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited. I think a lot of fans are thrilled to see you back out on the floor of the Frerick Center. But I want to go back to last year because in November, you're playing VCU. It's senior day. Did you think that that was your last game as a Dayton Flyer?
I think in my heart I felt like it would be, but I think it was kind of like a disconnect. I kind of didn't want to believe that that was kind of the case. But at that point I had made my decision that I was not going to come back. So that was my senior day. That was my last game. But in my head I couldn't really wrap my head around it. So.
4 years, you've produced so many moments, and you mentioned that sort of going through that process of senior day, thinking it's the final game. What changed, and when was that decision ultimately made of, hey, I'm going to come back?
I think after that moment and we won A-10s and we were kind of rolling into the tournament, I think I realized that after our season, I felt like I had unfinished business and more to do being here. So I talked to Coach, and I did have to do my student teaching in the spring, so we knew that it was going to be difficult for me to get practice time in terms of being able to come back. But I think it was important to me to feel like I had left everything on the table and that I was going to leave with no regrets and no unfinished business. So I wanted to come back to make that happen.
And I think fans are thrilled with that decision of watching you again here for 2024. You mentioned your student teaching, education major. Was that part of the decision when looking at the future of whether maybe you want to stay with volleyball or get into the classroom?
I think I had a great student teaching experience, and I think with that I was excited about what my future would look like, but at the same time I don't think I was ready to start teaching right away in the fall because I had done my student teaching in the spring and then I would just have the summer and then I would just be jumping headfirst into it in the fall. So I think with feeling like I had unfinished business here and on top of not being ready to kind of be an adult and be thrown into that yet, I think that was ultimately my moment of saying, hey, I have this opportunity to stay, and I think I'd be silly not to take advantage of that.
Down the road, with your experience and now student teaching and still wanting to continue down that path, you excelled last year in the classroom. You were all academic. I know you're really proud of that, but what do you want to teach?
My undergrad is in elementary education, so it's kindergarten through 5th grade. I did my student teaching in 2nd grade and I really loved it. But the dream would definitely be to teach and then coach high school or club or something like that so I can still stay involved in volleyball. So.
Volleyball, it has been such a huge part of your life, and you've been able to accomplish so much. I also, in thinking back to that last weekend at home, VCU, I think it was the first game. It was the second set. Fans, for watching you throughout these years, you're attacking from so many different angles. Well, it's the front of the net, whether it's from the back, and you have a moment where you almost like sort of take over, and you've had so many of them. Is it easy to just flip a switch and sort of describe that feeling in game where point after point after point it's coming from you?
I think a part of that is how I've been a leader through this program is through my play. So we talk about it a lot, but how do you play in the tough moments? How do you play against the best teams? How do you play when the pressure's on and the lights are shining? I feel like that's talked about so much in practice, and I've really tried to make myself that go-to player. So when things are hard or we need a kill or the moment's like really big, I feel like I've worked really hard to make it so that my teammates trust me in those moments. And it feels really good to be able to settle them and kind of just kind of allow everyone to relax and just play and know that it'll be taken care of. I think there are moments that I've been really great at that and moments that I've really struggled. So I think it's just a learning curve in those situations, but I think it comes with a lot of maturity, being that player that your teammates trust to go to in those moments. But I love playing at home and I love those moments. I love getting set when the score's tight and in those big moments, and I love those celebrations that come with that. But I feel really comfortable in those situations. I don't get nervous. I don't get scared about messing up. I think that just comes with the time and maturity that I was talking about.
You mentioned the learning curve. One thing that I think is really cool, and fans can see it firsthand when they come into the Frerick Center, are some of the players that have come before, and sort of going off of what you mentioned of trying to sort of learn to step into that role.
Yeah.
It's neat, and if you could just maybe go into it a little further of learning by example of some of the players that sort of show you the ropes and then trying to pass on that baton. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like sort of one word that sort of sums it up amongst the program, and I feel it just around sort of you know even in this space, and that's legacy. Sort of what that word means, and then sort of how you guys go about and being able to show it each and every time out on the floor.
Absolutely. That's a staple in our program. We talk about it almost every day, just not only playing for the players that came before you, but modeling the examples that they set for us and the path that they laid out for us. Obviously, we have a lot of opportunities now, and a lot of things have come our way, but that wouldn't have happened without them. So I think that that's huge for us, is understanding how much they've kind of paved the way for our program. But in terms of leading by example, I've had so many players that have kind of shown me the ropes, being in the program for 5 years now. Obviously, the first couple years, I didn't have those expectations on me, so I was able to learn from others. I got to play under Jamie Peterson, who's hanging up in our gym, as well as Mara Collins, who was our libero my freshman and sophomore year. Those players were just the best leaders and the best examples I could have had in terms of being a student athlete, being committed to this program, and just kind of leaving it all out there, and definitely showing up big in those big moments. I think they handled it with grace, and you would never know that they were kind of fazed by those situations. So I don't think I would be the player I am without the legacy that we have, and just kind of having the opportunity to learn from so many different players.
You mentioned Jamie's banner. It's really neat now. You have your own banner. Describe that feeling and being able to play under it.
It's hard for me because, I mean, I get emotional thinking about it, but I came to Dayton as a libero. I was supposed to play libero here, and even though I'd played outside my whole life, I was going to transition to the libero position, being here at Dayton. And I think that at the beginning I was kind of like, wow, like I'm going to get the opportunity to play outside. I was excited. I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity and just kind of prove everyone wrong that thought that I maybe couldn't do it, or that I was too short, or whatever else had been said about me in the past. But I think I am just very proud of myself, and I feel like if you would have told me this 4 years ago, I would have been like, you're crazy, like that would never happen. But I think I'm just incredibly proud of myself, of the growth that I've made in being here, and just kind of doing what wasn't expected of me. But that, again, comes with my coaching, the time that I've spent doing this, and my teammates. I think that banner being up there is a team win and a program win for everyone. I think that everyone was involved, everyone played their part, and I definitely wouldn't be hanging up there without last year's team and what we were able to do.
Honorable mention, All-American, four-time first-team All-Conference. You have been able to produce from the get-go. And I find it so interesting you telling your story about libero.
Yeah.
I think another thing that the fans really enjoy is the fact that you're not the traditional outside hitter. how much pride do you take in, being at the front of the net, flying through the air and hitting one hard in sort of a world now in college volleyball where there's not many players under 6 foot doing that?
Yeah. It's funny. My coach and I, we talk about this all the time about kind of my transition of being a libero and then playing outside here. But I think the biggest thing for me is that all the little girls that come to our games and that are in the stands and the fans that are watching believe that they can do that too, and that it's not just like an impossible thing that you can't play volleyball if you're under 6 foot. You can't do this, this, and this. I heard those things my whole life when I was being recruited, and it's just not true. I feel like if you put your mind to that and if they can see someone that is able to do those things, I think it can make the world of the difference in terms of having that confidence and just going after what you want. So I think the biggest pride for me is for them, so that they can see that and know that it's not unreachable by any means.
And reachable. This year, obviously, a lot of things have to play out, but you have a chance to become the all-time kills leader at the University of Dayton. You look around, you know the success. We talk about Flyer legacy. What would that mean to you in sort of surpassing some of those names up on that leaderboard from a really impressive program?
To me, it's not so much about like the award or the numbers or anything. I think it would just be having my name up there with such amazing players and such amazing teams. We've had teams that have made runs in the tournament. We've had amazing All-American players that have been recognized. I think just knowing that I was able to make that list, I think that would just be so much pride in itself for me. I don't think it's about like who had the most kills, and that doesn't matter as much to me as just being proud of being a Dayton Flyer and what I was able to accomplish in this time. I've held myself to very high standards. I've had a lot of goals that I've wanted to reach, but I think if I was able to do that in my final season here, I think it would just encompass my whole story as a Dayton Flyer and just all the teammates I've had and the teams I've been a part of and what we were able to do in those individual years.
Amongst the goals, now that you come back, you tell your story about that decision and the challenge, and here, 2024, you're out there. Does the motivation change? And then I guess what is the motivation for this year and this team?
100% me coming back this year was to make it to the Sweet 16. This team, we have confidence returning so many starters. We have great freshmen that have just full throttle joined us in our journey on that road. But I think the unfinished business I felt was we need to make it to the Sweet 16. This is the team. This is the year. And I felt like we have the best chance to do that this year. So I think coming off a high on last year and what an amazing season we had and what we were able to accomplish, I feel even better about this year and just the maturity of some of our players and how that's increased. But I think that is my mindset of being here this season, is wanting to make history with this team.
Well, we are excited to watch that journey. And Lexie, we really appreciate your time, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
For more information, anything Dayton Flyers, you can go online, DaytonFlyers.com, and also follow us on social media at Dayton Flyers.